Halloween Ends will kill Michael Myers and Laurie, theory. Explained. After the changes made by Halloween Kills, the only way Halloween Ends could close the Laurie Strode saga is by killing her and Michael Myers. Halloween Ends will bring closure to the Laurie Strode saga, and the best way to do so is by killing both Michael Myers and Laurie. The horror genre has seen various franchises, and one of the most popular ones is Halloween, which began in 1978 with John Carpenter's movie of the same name and grew into a franchise in the 1980s. Unlike others, Halloween hasn't kept a certain continuity and has been retconned a couple of times, and it's currently going through a reboot trilogy that has, once more, created a new timeline. Halloween introduced the audience to Michael Myers, who on Halloween night 1963 murdered his older sister when he was just 6 years old. Michael was then sent to Smith's Grove Sanitarium and didn't say a word ever again, becoming the subject of many studies, but he was primarily Dr. Sam Loomis, Donald Pleasant's patient. 15 years later, on October 30, 1978, Michael escaped and returned to his hometown Haddonfield, Illinois, where he began to stalk Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, and her friends. Michael killed Laurie's best friends and she became a survivor of his killing spree, as well as the final girl of the franchise. However, as mentioned above, the Halloween franchise has been retconned a couple of times, and at one point, Laurie was left aside and other characters became Michael's targets, but she was eventually brought back. The Halloween franchise is back in action thanks to a reboot trilogy, starting with David Gordon Green's Halloween in 2018. The new movies serve as a continuation to Carpenter's original movie and ignore all the sequels, meaning that in this new timeline Michael and Laurie aren't siblings. Her daughter Jamie Lloyd, Danielle Harris, and son John Tate, Josh Hartnett, never existed, and Laurie is still alive. Halloween saw the return of Michael Myers to Haddonfield and him going after Laurie and her family, daughter Karen, Judy Greer, and granddaughter Allison, Andy Matishak, and Halloween Kills made some big changes to Michael and Laurie's stories, leaving no other choice than their deaths in the final installment of the trilogy, Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends needs to wrap up the main Halloween story. The Halloween franchise has gone back and forth with Laurie's story. She was killed between Halloween 2 and Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers, brought back in Halloween H20, 20 years later, and killed again in Halloween, Resurrection. With the reboot timeline being direct sequels to the first movie, Laurie was brought back. But now as the survivor who was never able to recover from the traumatic events of Halloween night 1978. Her preparation and search for revenge against Michael Myers has been at the core of the reboot timeline, so even if the Halloween franchise is to continue beyond Halloween Ends, whether in the same Strode women's storyline or a different one, the movie has to bring some closure. It's in the title, after all. As mentioned above, Halloween Ends is intended to be the end of the Michael Myers and Laurie Strode saga, and while Halloween Kills left a big mess and lots of questions that have to be addressed and solved in just one movie, it has to wrap up the arc of the franchise's main final girl, and the best solution seems to be her and Michael Myers' death. Halloween has hinted Laurie has to die for Michael Myers to be killed. Halloween established that Michael Myers was eventually captured minutes after the end of the 1978 movie and spent decades locked up at Smith's Grove, now Smith's Grove Psychiatric Hospital, but with the help of his new doctor and former student of Loomis, Ranbir Sartain, Haluk Bilginer, he was led back to Laurie. After lots of struggle, the Strode women managed to trap Michael in the basement of Laurie's heavily guarded house, set fire to it, and ran away, leaving him to die. But if there's something the Halloween franchise has clearly established is that Michael Myers is very hard to defeat. The sequel, Halloween Kills, picks up a couple of minutes after the end of Halloween and sees the Strode women arriving at the hospital and Michael escaping the fire and returning to Haddonfield, where he continued his killing spree on his way to his family home. While Laurie recovered, fellow survivors Tommy Doyle, Anthony Michael Hall, Lindsay Wallace, Kyle Richards, Marion Chambers, Nancy Stevens, and Lonnie Elam, Robert Longstreet, led a mob to hunt down Michael Myers. Just when it seems like the mob achieved its goal with the help of Karen, who lured Michael into their trap, allowing them to shoot, stab, and beat the killer, Halloween Kills added a twist by making Michael Myers supernatural again. Parallel to the mob killing Michael, Laurie explained to Hawkins, Will Patton, that she thought Michael was flesh and blood, but no mortal man could survive what Michael has gone through, and the more he kills the more he transcends into something else, impossible to defeat. Laurie added that the curse of Michael is the fear he is seated in Haddonfield, and he can't be defeated with brute force. However, there should still be a way to defeat Michael Myers, and with Karen now, supposedly, dead as well, the reboot timeline is hinting at the only way for Michael to be killed is with Laurie dying as well. Theory: Laurie sacrifices herself to kill Michael Myers. In Halloween Ends, Laurie Strode has already died 3 times in the Halloween franchise, including the remakes by Rob Zombie, but Halloween Ends must be the real, final time it happens, but it shouldn't be in vain. Laurie was first killed off-screen to make way for Jamie Lloyd, as Jamie Lee Curtis didn't return for the 4th movie, and again in the first minutes of Halloween Resurrection, which undid the satisfying death of Michael and Laurie's triumph from Halloween H20. Now, it's to be seen if the reboot trilogy will give Michael some sort of connection with Laurie, like the original timeline did by making them brother and sister, but the best way to bring their saga to an end would be with their deaths, with Laurie sacrificing herself in the process. This would not only honor her Halloween H20 promise to kill Michael Myers but would also bring her arc to a full end in a satisfying way, as she would be finally defeating the boogeyman after all these years.